nothing like it on earth at this time. This thing is huge. It covers, 40 acres. It took 10 years to build, thousands of craftsmen, but then the outer court, all the broader stuff was built from 20 BC all the way to 60 AD. It was a huge, huge complex. The highest walls, 158 feet high. The thing was 500 yards long and 1,000 feet wide. It's an amazing building, encrusted with gold, you can see a piece. These are the colonnades that people walk through. These are 40-foot columns that are there. It's an amazing building. Stones, this is what the guys are admiring, these stones. This is underneath the western wall of the temple. We've been there, David, and we were across the river to Israel. These stones, 40 feet by 12 feet by 12 feet, all quarried somewhere else outside of Jerusalem, brought back to the temple. They weigh 100 tons each, 100 feet wide, high walls. And so, appropriately, the disciples are saying, look at these stones. Are they not incredible? And certainly they were. Yeah, Jesus says, you see these great buildings? Not one stone shall be left upon another that shall not be thrown out. And he's talking about that. But what happened? We've been there to see this too. When the Roman general Titus had finally had enough of the rebellious Jewish people, surrounded the city, and just basically destroyed, killed many people, and took every stone. You can see the anger. This is one of the elements of how the world hates the Jewish people. How Satan is behind most of this. So you see the terror that they brought and the enthusiasm with which they knocked these rocks down. So here's what Jesus concludes. He says that you think all this is wonderful, I'm going to tell you what's coming, and this is not. And the question is, to us, what do we value? What are we amazed at? What do we think is incredible? And even pursuit, we put so much into it. And yet, just like these stones, all went away. Nothing is permanent. In work, we used to have temporary jobs and permanent jobs. I'm not in a permanent job anymore, so how permanent was it? And so, all that we can see is temporary. And it's all there, all the time. We can think of your mind is something as massive as a temple. We're going to get to verses later that is only one thing that will last forever. What is that? Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. That's eternal. Goes on. Now, as he sat on the Mount of Olives, opposite the temple, Peter, James, and John and Andrew asked him privately, tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign when all these things are fulfilled? They're asking two questions. He said, all this stuff is coming down. They're going, wow, when will these things be, and what will be the signs of what is coming? He asked two questions. Now notice, Mark is the only one that gives us the detail of who it is that comes and asks. So it's the big three plus Andrew, Peter, James, John, and Peter's brother Andrew. And they want to know more about, by the way, what did the disciples argue about among themselves? Who's going to be greatest, and specifically, who's going to sit at the right hand? So they're anticipating what? The kingdom. And they're thinking, we've suffered with Jesus. We're going to be high up in this kingdom thing, and one of us might get to sit at his right hand. So they're anxious to find out. Temples come down. They must be thinking the kingdom is coming. This is a picture of the Mount of Olives. Beautiful place, another place we've been, one of my favorite places on earth. Very significant place in God's program. Way back in Ezekiel, he saw the corruption in the temple, and he sees the Spirit of God go out of the eastern gate and ascend from the Mount of Olives. God returns from the Mount of Olives when Jesus, go one more, we'll come back to that. When Jesus, in his triumphal entry, comes down from the Mount of Olives into the city. So God has left, he's coming back from the Mount of Olives. And then where does he ascend from? This is not a rhetorical question. He ascends from the Mount of Olives. Back up. Where's he going to return to? The Mount of Olives. It's a significant place. Back up. Now, so this is the view from the Mount of Olives to the city. You can see the Kidron Valley is here. So you go down and then back up to the city. So when he's coming down the triumphal entry, he looks over this city and says, Jerusalem, how often I've wanted to gather you together, but you didn't know the time of your visitation. You're not recognizing me. And so enemies will come and surround this place and take you down. Yeah. Olives. There are olive trees all along here. It's a beautiful place, and that's what they look like. Now you know all about the Mount of Olives.
Mike, can you point out the east gate?
Yeah.
Sorry? Yeah, come back. So, yeah. So the comes down here. The eastern gate has been walled up.
Yep.
By who?
Muslims.
The Muslims. They're trying to, they know the prophecy. They don't want him coming through there. And further, right before the gate, tons of graves. Thinking that no good rabbi, it's unclean to touch a dead body. No good rabbi would come through there. But you know what happens to unclean people when they touch Jesus? What happened to the woman with an issue of blood? Healed like this. What happened to dead bodies? So as Jesus comes into the gate, bodies flying everywhere. Because Jesus reverses curse, right? That's the way that works. So the eastern gate's walled up. It is directly from the Mount of Olives. From the Mount of Olives, you come down and go through the eastern gate. That's the way Jesus would have gone. And that's the way he's returned. Jesus answered. Now he's starting to answer the question. Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am him, and will deceive many. Now, this is the beginning of his order of events that accompany his second coming. And these events have happened before. And so the picture is, there have always been people that come in his name, right? There have been lots of false leaders, gathered up followers, and, Jim Jones, and just saw the thing, what's the guy from India that built the compound? Anyway, a lot of these guys pretend to be, and so these are beginnings of sorrows, and they are coming more quickly and more severely. The picture is of a woman giving birth. It's like it begins slow with the contractions, and then get closer and closer and closer until the baby finally comes. So the first picture is of people that come to deceive, and we're going to cover this thing at two levels. One level is the applications, based on what's coming, how we should be, and the other level is the order of events that we're going to put on a timeline eventually. Clear? 2 points? All right. And so these are the applications. First, you ask yourself, is my stuff Christ? And here's the first order of event that we're going to talk about. This program of his return begins with false Christs appearing, and particularly the Antichrist is what we're talking about here. But when you hear of wars and rumors of wars, don't be troubled, for such things must happen. But the end is not yet. Have we had wars? But they're coming more quickly and more severely, and will continue to do so until the time of the end. Often people, when wars come, they start to say, well, this could be it. Wars in the Middle East have been happening forever. This could be it. Might be 1,000 years to come. Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There'll be earthquakes in various places. There'll be famines and troubles. These are the beginnings of sorrow. So this package of 4 things, Jesus pulls together and calls it the beginning of sorrows. So what does that mean for us? If we're alive at this time, it's going to be difficult. Not as difficult as it's going to get, but pretty difficult. Wars, famines, pestilences. We've seen how pervasive a pestilence can be. Just recently with the COVID thing. So these kind of things will come to pass before Christ returns. So now we have 4 things that are the events that will come together before Christ's return. It's false Christ, it's wars and rumors of wars, famines, troubles, pestilences, and death. These 4 things show up in the book of Revelation as the first 4 seals, or sometimes we call the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Apocalypse meaning the prophecies concerning the second coming. It's amazing how precise this is. We're not going to go into Revelation because our time is relatively short. But the first horse, white horse, conqueror sitting with a sword. Second horse is a red horse, war, blood. The third horse is a green horse, famine, and then the fourth horse is a pale horse, which represents death of all kinds. So that's the order of things. We'll get to the 5th one in just a minute. Go ahead, David. But watch out for yourselves. All this is coming. Be on the lookout. All this is coming. For they will deliver you up to councils. You'll be beaten in the synagogues. You'll be brought before rulers and kings for my sake, for a testimony to them. The gospel must first be preached to all the nations. But when they arrest you and deliver you up, don't worry beforehand or premeditate what you should speak. For whatever is given you in that hour, speak that. For it's not you who speak, but the Holy Spirit who speaks within you. Persecution is an opportunity to give testimony. There are lots of examples in history when somebody was put to the test and they stood up for the Lord, and it amazed people that they were willing to do it. The apostles did it in the temple themselves, and other examples. And what he's saying to us, if we're alive at this time, be prepared to speak the gospel in persecution. And be confident that you don't have to make up the words yourself. Holy Spirit will be with you as you stand there and will speak the true words of the gospel. Now this doesn't just apply to the guys living in the end times, but it applies to us. We are to be speaking and to be reflecting the gospel in all of our life, but especially in the tough times. Especially in the tough times. We have a close relative that dies. You hang on to the gospel, don't you? You hang on to the gospel, which says she is alive now because Christ is alive, and I will be alive too and see her then. And we speak that at the funerals, and so often I've seen cases where people that come aren't believers, hear the gospel at a funeral, and they come. So it's often in the troubles that people are broken down and willing to hear what the gospel says. Otherwise, you're self-sufficient. What do I need God for? I'm in charge of my life, captain of my fate, all that nonsense. So, next application is speak the gospel at all times. Do you know what the gospel says? Very simple. Very simple. It says, I'm a sinner. I've not kept what God said to do. And all it takes is 30 seconds of reflection to realize that, if you're not filled with pride. And that Jesus came and took the penalty for all that in our place. fully satisfied the sin. There's nothing else we can do. Anything else you think you can do to earn your salvation diminishes what Christ did on the cross. It says what he did wasn't enough. And it was. We know it was enough. God verified he accomplished it by what? Raising him from the dead. That's the guarantee that his payment is full and complete. And because he lives, we shall live also. I am the resurrection and the life. He who comes to me shall not die, but will live forever. Now, we do suffer death in this world, just as David said, and the reasons why. But the last enemy that will be destroyed is death. Eventually, there's going to come a time we will die no more. That's the gospel. That's what you should be speaking. Now, brother will betray brother to death. This is an incredible prophecy. Brother against brother. Father is child. And children will rise up against parents and cause them to be put to death. And you'll be hated by all for my name's sake. If you're called by my name, you're going to be hated by everyone. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. When pressure comes, it divides. Jesus said, I didn't come to bring peace, but I came to bring a sword. And that sword divides. We know many people who claim to be Christians, but are not. They're kind of on the fence. They're kind of between and betwixt. I'm better than that guy, so I'm probably okay. God will probably... When persecution comes, it separates the sheep from the goats. It separates true believers to those who pretend, who haven't actually taken Christ. And this is a picture of it. So you got, even within families, you got true believers and you got unbelievers. And because of the pressure that will come, that the Antichrist led by leading governments and so forth, they'll come after people who are naming the name of Christ and seek to harm them, even to kill them, to persecute them. And there'll be pressure on families to give them up. Yeah, he's a Christian. At fear of their own death. Fear of their own death. So there's a time coming when a clear division will happen. And so our application is, be on the right side. You're going to be on one side or the other. The one side against Christ will fare well in these few years and lose everything in eternity. Those who are on the right side will suffer terribly but live forever. We've got to look ahead. We've got to look at the eternal things to be sure we're in the right place. So, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing where it ought not, let the reader understand, then let those of Judea flee to the mountains. So this is a very significant prophecy. It's called the abomination of desolation. What does abomination mean? It means things that are disgusting. They're detestable. They're filthy. Standing in the place where it ought not is desolating, what we'll see in a minute, desolating the temple, which means it's making waste. It's making it detestable. So this is a very clear thing that Jesus is referring to, and it's a clear marker about the last days. It's spoken of by Daniel in several places, spoken by Jesus here, spoken by Paul in 2 Thessalonians. I think I have some of those verses in here. Now this is Daniel. Daniel mentions it 3 different times. This is the one that's most clear. And forces shall be mustered by him. So you know that in prophecy, there are near fulfillments and far fulfillments, right? All through the Old Testament, there's sort of rehearsals of what's coming. It's a practice run, if you will. It's a picture of what is coming in full. This is a picture of a person called Antiochus Epiphanes. He's one of the Greek generals who became kind of a quasi-king following Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great conquered all the Middle East, including Israel. Then there were 4 kings that came up after him. Antiochus Epiphanes is one that ruled over the Middle East, ruled over Israel and other places. And it says he's going to defile the sanctuary. What's the sanctuary? It's the temple. Then they should take away daily sacrifices. What did the Jews do in the temple? They sacrificed and placed there the abomination of desolation. We know from history that Antiochus Epiphanes went into the Holy of Holies, where only one person was allowed by God to enter, and only once a year. High priest went in, poured the blood on the mercy seat, and he could only do it once a year. And if anybody went in there other times, not a happy occurrence. But Antiochus Epiphanes tore the curtains, opened them wide into the Holy of Holies, and erected a statue of Zeus. And this is what Daniel says, that's an abomination, that we should have any other God other than the God represented in the Holy of Holies. It's an abomination of desolation. And that was fulfilled in, 400 BC, something like that. Yet, it's a picture of something even more detestable that's coming. With me? Near fulfillment, far fulfillment. Here is the far fulfillment of the abomination of desolation. This is 2 Thessalonians written by Paul. And the man of sin is revealed, who is? Antichrist. The son of perdition, who opposed. What is perdition, by the way? Destruction. He brings destruction, and he will be destroyed. Who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. The Antichrist will actually, abomination of desolation, will actually go into the temple, which has to be rebuilt. Right? That's a sign of the incoming, second coming. Go into the temple, sit in the Holy of Holies, and say, now you shall worship me, because I am God. Abomination that a man could call himself God. Abomination of desolation. This is what Jesus is referring to. He says, when you see this, head for the mountains. Because at this time, he will bring great tribulation, greater than any man. So here's another event. We got the 4 horsemen. Now we got the abomination of desolation. When you see this, let him who is on the housetop not go down into the house, nor enter anything out of his house, enter to take anything out of his house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant, to those who are nursing babies in those days, and pray that your flight may not be in winter, for in those days there will be tribulation. The other gospels say great tribulation. There will be great tribulation, such as had not been since the beginning of the world of creation, which God created until this time, nor shall ever be. Think about what was the greatest tribulation that's already occurred in our life, well, almost in our lifetime. We're not quite as old as that. Toward the Jews, what's the greatest one you can think of? Second World War, Holocaust, 6 million Jews killed. Jesus says that'll be like a church picnic compared to what's coming. This tribulation will be greater than any that has ever occurred before, nor will ever occur again. And that is signaled by the abomination of desolation, which is the Antichrist declaring himself as God. So if he's God and he wants to be worshipped and you won't worship, what's he going to do? Taking you out. He's taking you out. And so this tribulation will be severe. So, and unless the Lord had shortened the days, no flesh would be saved, but for the elect's sake, whom he chose, he shortened the days. So we'll see in a little bit, the Great Tribulation is forecasted to last 3.5 years, but he'll shorten that period of time for the elect's sake. He can't let it go until all of us are killed. He's going to shorten it for the elect's sake so that the whole set of believers aren't wiped out. And we're going to see what that is. So, next application. When we see the abomination, flee. At least those who are in the city of Jerusalem need to escape quickly, because that's where the tribulation will begin, where he's in the temple. But it says, he who endures to the end will be saved. Now, what does the word saved mean? It's another word for deliverance. So we normally in church circles talk about saved in terms of salvation. Delivered from the price of sin. Delivered from death in that sense. In this context, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean you have to strive and endure to the end and then you get to go to heaven. That's not what this means. This is delivered out of the Great Tribulation. Delivered from this tribulation. Taken out. And he says that I'm going to shorten that 3.5 years and take you out. We're going to talk about that in more detail. But be ready to die means, I think of it as checking your whole card. Have I made a commitment to Christ that I'm willing to stand on my faith in him even at the cost of death? Wouldn't be a bad idea for you to just contemplate that. Yeah? Am I there? Ready to stand up for Christ even at the cost of death? Let alone peer pressure. Let alone people making fun of you. That's nothing. You should be standing up for that. So the next event is the Great Tribulation. The abomination of desolation signals the Great Tribulation. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, Antichrist will be pretending to be that. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and show signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. So what kind of things that could he do that could deceive, if possible, even the elect? False miracles. Actual amazing things that you look at and say, nobody could do this but God. Yet they're false miracles. Revelation talks about these things. Others talk about these things. That the Antichrist is going to be able to do because he's going to be empowered by Satan. He's going to be empowered by Satan. At the time of the abomination of desolation, Satan comes in to him and believes he is accomplishing the one thing that Satan has wanted ever since his existence, which is to be worshipped. Worshipped. So in the person of the Antichrist, he is achieving his lifelong goal. But Jesus says, don't be fooled by these things. See, I told you beforehand. I've warned you. You should have no excuse. I told you this is coming. Get ready. Don't be fooled by false miracles. So, next application. Did I just say that?
Yeah.
Don't be fooled by false miracles. So here are all the applications from the first 23 verses of chapter 13. First, check to see if how you're spending your time, how you're putting all of your passion, what is at the core of your heart. Is it eternal or merely temporary? Right? Your life will be worth something, will be satisfying, if you focus first and foremost on things that have eternal value, which is only two things. It's the Word of God and the Gospel and people. People that will live forever, right? All this stuff is going to be gone. Don't be deceived by false Christ. Prepare for tough times. Yeah, it's getting tougher in this country to be a Christ follower, is it not? Whereas, even if people weren't Christians 50 years ago, there was a general acceptance. There was even this notion that America is a Christian country. Be not deceived. We are not anything like a Christian country. And we're starting to be minimized, pushed out of civilization. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse, so prepare for tough times. Speak the gospel in times of persecution. That's when the gospel will land with the greatest effect. Know that a division is coming between true believers and unbelievers. Be sure you're on the right side of that. If times get tough, if you see the abomination of desolation, be ready. Be ready perhaps to die, but endure to the end and you will be delivered out of it. And then finally, don't be fooled by false miracles, which will look pretty amazing. So those are the applications. Here's the order of events. False Christ, wars of rumors, wars, famines, pestilence. We call that the four horsemen of the, say it, apocalypse. Then the abomination comes after that. The abomination of desolation brings in the great tribulation, which is brought by Satan. But the great tribulation days will be shortened by Jesus. So these are the order of events. I now want to put them on a timeline, which is the way you normally see eschatology taught, but I wanted to focus on applications first. So here's the timeline. To think about the timeline, we first need to put it in context. Now, if you have any trouble understanding what the 70 weeks prophecy of Daniel is, you can go to Jeff. Jeff will explain it in great detail. Will you not? Oh boy. Daniel 9:24 in three small verses. That's Daniel 9:24 through 27. Three small verses. Predicts and prophesies very completely from about 445 BC to the end. It's an incredible prophecy. If you want to study eschatology, this is the place to start. He says that from this command to Nehemiah, so he's receiving this prophecy when he's in Babylon. And Artaxerxes is going to tell Nehemiah, you can go back into the land and build the wall. And Daniel says, actually Gabriel is telling Daniel this. He says, from that date, there will be 69 weeks of years. A week in this context simply means 7. Context is years. So 69 sevens of years from the time of this command until the Messiah the Prince, who is. So if I count forward, 69 times 70, a prophetic year is 360 days. If I count forward from this date, Nisan 1445 BC, 173,880 days, I come to April 6, 32 AD, which is a reasonable date for the triumphal entry. To the day. Is that not incredible? So, now, these are obviously ancient dates. So I don't know, we're not going to go to our death believing that was the precise date, nor that the precise date, but I believe you move it this way or this way. Whatever the precise date is, 173,880 days is that day. Even so, when Jesus comes down the triumphal entry, he said, if you knew that this was your day, you would recognize me as the Messiah. If you knew this was my day. And in fact, those who were on the road on that day did recognize him as the Messiah. You remember the Pharisees said, don't you hear what these people are saying? Tell them to quit. And Jesus says, if they quit, what? The very stones will cry out. Because on this day, I'm going to be recognized as a Messiah. Yeah? So, if we know that that is true, we can pretty much look at the rest of it as coming true. So the prophecy says, from the time we give this command until the Messiah, the Prince, 69 weeks of years, after which the Messiah will be cut off, which means crucified, death, he'll be cut off, but not for himself, it says, which means he didn't deserve it. And then after that, the city will be destroyed. Jerusalem will be destroyed, which happened in 70 AD, just as Jesus predicted in this chapter. So these things in red are the things, except for the cross, are the things that Jesus talks about in Mark 13. Now, 69 weeks happened progressively, one after another, what am I trying to say? Not synchronously. Consecutively, thank you. But now, the 70th week should have happened. Gabriel told Daniel, this will be the end of it. We only need 70 weeks of years, 490 years to, but the 70th week didn't come right away. Why? So we could come in. So all the Old Testament is primarily prophesying about the Jews. What about us? This period of time between the 69th and 70th year is called the church age, when the church, not exclusively, but primarily is made up of Gentiles. Paul calls it a mystery because it wasn't seen in the Old Testament. So in Ephesians 3, he says, I'm telling you a mystery that we shall be grafted in. We'll join in. So the gap between the 69th and 70th year is for us. It's called the church age. But the 70th week is coming, and that is the focus. That 70th week is the focus of all end times prophecy. Happened within those 7 years. The 7 years, according to Daniel 9, are described by the 7-year covenant. Antichrist comes and offers a covenant that will last 7 years. Then the abomination comes in 3.5 years later. He says in the middle of the week, in the middle of the 7 years, he puts an end to sacrifice and grain offering and goes in, declares himself to be God. So that first 3.5 years, let's go to the next one. We're going to now zero in on that 70th week. Okay? Here's the 70th week of Daniel, described by the 7-year covenant. Jesus said you're going to see false Christ, wars, rumor, Lord, famine, pestilence, death, which he calls the beginning of sorrows. And then he says, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, and Daniel told us it would be exactly 3.5 years from the beginning of this covenant. And this is what's going to happen. The Antichrist is going to go into the temples of God and demand worship. That's what we read in 2 Thessalonians 2. He's going to kill those who won't. And in Daniel 7, which we'll talk about next time, he actually overcomes the saints. He's winning in this second 3.5 years. But he brings an end to that time by shortening the Great Tribulation and declaring it the end. We will see next week what shortens the days, what brings the end. Yeah? Mm-hmm. That's the beginning of Mark 13. We'll finish it next week. Father, we are amazed at your word, at the accuracy of it, at the precision of it. And we have built our lives on the truth of it. Help us, Lord, in whatever tribulation we may find ourselves in, now or in the future, that we're true to you in every way, that we stand for your name in faith, with confidence